Cynthia, while the U.S. is making a big show of taking the battle against the Mexican drug cartels to the border, there's a lot more to it than that. These ruthless operations are well established already across America, with a distribution system that would be the envy of any major corporation. On a rainy day in Georgia, in the Atlanta suburb of Duluth, federal drug agents are scouring this quiet neighborhood in preparation for a raid on the well-hidden operations of a Mexican drug cartel.
The majority of these raids are going to be taking place in suburban communities and subdivisions where there's a lot of hardworking people.
You couldn't build a better environment to camouflage this activity than Gwinnett County. It's a perfect place for these folks to hide in the neighborhoods.
16 suburban homes and warehouses were put under surveillance, all rented by people agents believe are connected to Mexico's Gulf cartel, thought to be heavily armed.
These criminal organizations want to make sure that they have the greatest amount of firepower possible, and that's why they're getting these weapons.
The morning of the raid, more than 100 police and federal agents suit up with bulletproof vests.
I have several magazines with rounds of ammunition, handcuffs. I will have a flashlight. So everything we need to do what we need to do.
We have 21 arrest warrants that we're executing in 4 counties in metro Atlanta this morning.
DEA helicopters move into place, and the agents hit the door.
DEA! Open the door! Command
Among those arrested, the couple who had lived in this house for about a year. They have been charged with conspiracy to distribute methamphetamines. Their neighbors down the block said they were stunned to learn about the alleged connections to the Mexican drug cartels.
It was shocking because they haven't lived here very long, and of course you didn't know about it. So, I mean, it was very quiet. The daughter goes to school with my daughter.
It shocked me really bad. You never know how many people come down through here. It could be bad or...
It makes you think twice about who your neighbors are.
More than 1,000 miles from the border, Mexican drug cartels are well entrenched in some unlikely American neighborhoods.
We know and have seen over the past few years that the Mexican cartel reach and the networks reach deep not only into the southeast, but into the northeast, the Midwest, and all throughout the United States.
In the 1980s and 90s, it was the Colombian cartels, operating out of Miami, that flooded the country with drugs, an era in the popular culture of Miami Vice and Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend!
I'm showing a total of 6 people on the ground now.
A 15-year-long U.S. crackdown on the Colombian cartels, Caribbean airdrops, and fast boats, and efforts in Colombia itself knocked out the Colombian cartels, but opened the door to the Mexicans.
As we continued to impact our operations, we saw Mexican drug trafficking organizations begin to fill some of those voids and expand their scope.
Today, it's no longer about Miami Vice, but more about Atlanta and Atlanta truck stops. Federal law enforcement officials say this city and a handful of others along key interstates have become the Mexican drug cartel's major hubs.
Atlanta is a central transshipment point for pushing narcotics to some of the largest distribution cells in the United States.
The head of the Drug Enforcement Office in Atlanta, Rodney Benson, took us on an aerial tour to show us the drug distribution system of this decade.
Below us now is Spaghetti Junction, very active corridor for the smuggling of drugs and money. Right over to the side is a network of warehouses where we've seen cartel representatives bringing those loads of drugs. Then the drugs are placed in a network of stash houses throughout metro Atlanta before the shipments of narcotics move up to distribution cells in the Northeast.
So now, instead of chasing speedboats on Biscayne Bay, drug agents are following huge 18-wheelers on the interstates. There were 100 kilos of cocaine in this truck, 100 in this one, too, in secret traps hidden in the floor. The stakeouts have shifted from flashy nightclubs to gritty truck stops. Here, a drug courier delivers a stack of cash to a truck for the return trip to Mexico.
DEA in the Atlanta Field Division has seized more bulk cash than any other division in the country.
The Mexican cartel's huge truck smuggling operation is in part an outgrowth of the expanded truck traffic across the border since the NAFTA trade agreement in the mid-1990s. Almost 3 million loaded truck containers now come across the border with Mexico each year. At best, only about 5% are inspected. Each inspection takes hours. The DEA and New York police had to use power saws to cut into this suspected Mexican drug truck in order to find 180 kilos of cocaine hidden in the walls and floor. A former top national security official says it would be impossible to inspect all such trucks.
I think it would have a hugely negative impact in terms of commercial traffic and the trade between the United States and Mexico. I think you'd see lines like you wouldn't believe and increased costs to goods and services.
With the border so porous, it's left to agents and police in hubs like Atlanta to do the best they can.
The thing that strikes you the most is it's just a middle-class neighborhood that doesn't look any different than any other middle-class neighborhood in America, and there's a huge pile of dope there. And from the outside, you would never know it. You'd never know.
And the same is true in Denver and Chicago and Houston and Los Angeles, the other major hubs, now being flooded with operatives for the Mexican cartels, following the trail from the border of 18-wheelers on American interstates. Cynthia?